Your Facebook advertising strategy isn't working as well as you want right now because things have changed. And what used to work even a few months ago is dramatically different than the strategies and tactics that we're seeing succeed on the platform right now. For example, the problem child, better known as Facebook lead ads, was once a terrible choice for businesses that only ever seemed capable of delivering low-quality leads all wrapped up in a clunky and awkward dashboard. But now, thanks to a few recent changes and some secrets that I'll be sharing with you later in the video, Facebook lead ads are amazing, and they're quickly becoming one of my top picks for generating leads and making sales for pretty much any kind of business out there. So I'll break down how to set them up right and what a profitable ad campaign looks like in just a minute. And I'll share with you a little secret that I use to take campaigns from a 3% response rate to over a 68% response rate. Next, another thing that's changed is campaign structures and many of the default settings inside your Facebook Ads Manager account. Most people don't know about these changes, so they're just leaving things on the default settings, but this is a mistake. In fact, some of these settings are so bad that you'd be better off just tearing your money apart and lighting it on fire and then flushing it down the toilet. Extreme? Maybe. Overly dramatic? Possibly. But accurate? Sadly, yes, my friend. So I'll show you how to set your campaigns up for success, making sure that you get the absolute most bang from your advertising buck and that you're not losing or wasting money on ineffective or useless settings. And then lastly, I'm going to give you an insider look into how I set up and structure and launch a brand new campaign, complete with what I'm looking at when I'm testing new objectives and the metrics that I assign to each to make sure that it's going to end up profitable. So let me start by first making one of the most controversial statements I've ever made before, which is that generating leads, at least how most people are doing it, is one of the least effective marketing strategies available today. Yeah, I know, but let me explain. Generating leads in the way that it's traditionally done is one of the most overhyped marketing promises of all time, sitting right there beside the objective of trying to get more likes and more comments and more shares on your stuff. And if you've ever run a marketing or advertising campaign or hired someone to run one for you and they've come back with a bucket full of likes but no actual sales, then you know what this feels like. And it doesn't feel good. This is because doing things like generating likes and comments and shares doesn't usually lead to business growth and sales and revenue. I'd like to say it never leads to sales, but I kinda hedged there a little bit. Well, the same concept applies to just going out there and generating leads. This is because anyone can get leads. Thousands of them, millions even. All you really gotta do is make some kind of crazy irresistible offer, like give away a free iPad or a free car. But the problem with these leads is that they're unlikely to ever convert into an actual customer in the future. That is, unless your business model is entirely based around giving away free iPads or free cars, in which case you and I need to have a little heart-to-heart chat about the future of your business, because I'm worried for you. The secret then to generating the kind of leads that you actually want, the kind that are going to turn into customers and eventually buy something, really comes down to two things. First, you need to focus on acquiring quality leads, which is a combination of how relevant they are to your business, how motivated they are to solve the problem or take action, and how capable they are of actually buying or paying for it. And next, you need a conversion mechanism, or in other words, a marketing funnel or a sales funnel, and a way to essentially turn those leads into customers. Now, after over 10 years of owning multiple different marketing agencies and having spent over $70 million on advertising through the agencies, well, the number one software that I use for this is called High Level. So I'll make sure to link up where you can get an extended free trial in the descriptions below this video. And if you're already using High Level, well, good for you. You can still use the link in the descriptions below to get a few $100 off an upgrade coupon. Just click on the blue link instead of the yellow button. Now, this video is not sponsored, but that's not going to stop me from professing my love for the software, as aside from having all of the usual features you would expect, like a CRM and email and SMS and a calendar and scheduling and all kinds of different customizations and funnel options, the real power and the secret feature that I use and how I'm able to take response rates from 3% to over 68% comes down to the use of automations. And what I like to do here is to immediately follow up with a new lead, ideally using SMS and using one of the following two types of questions. The first type of question is something specific and relevant and directly related to the lead and to the offer that they just signed up for. And this next part's important, making sure that I'm asking something other than a simple yes or no question. In other words, if I was generating health or fitness leads, I would send an SMS that asks something like, how many days a week do you want to work out? Or how many pounds do you want to lose in the next 30 days? Or do you prefer in-person or online training sessions? And if I was offering real estate services, I would ask, how many bedrooms are you looking for? Or when are you looking to move? Or is location or house size more important? The reason I phrase the questions like this is because I want to initiate the conversation and get them talking about themselves and their goals and their dreams and their desired outcomes as quickly as possible. If after some testing though, I'm not getting the responses that I originally hoped for, I'll go with plan B, which is to ask this question. Is this first name? Obviously replacing first name with their actual name, which you would have collected when you first generated the lead. Now, the typical response you're gonna get back here is probably gonna be either yes or who is this? Both of which open the door for you to quickly remind them why they signed up for more information and then ask your next question. Okay, so that's where Facebook lead ads and high level shine. But whether you're running lead ads or call ads or conversion ads or traffic ads or whatever, there are still some important things you need to know about and tweak inside your Facebook Ads Manager. So let's go over those now. First off, we gotta talk about Advantage Campaign Budget, which is the new name and new version of CBO, which stood for Campaign Budget Optimization. Even though the concept and the operating principles behind ACB is nothing new, there's still a lot of confusion about it, like what it is and when to use it and when not to use it. So let's clear that up now. As a quick refresher, as we've just covered, ACB stands for Advantage Campaign Budget. And this new name was designed to essentially replace the name of CBO, which stood for Campaign Budget Optimization. Yeah, I can see how this gets confusing. Anyway, fortunately, it really is kind of just what it sounds like, which is essentially setting the budget for your campaign at that campaign level, and then allowing Facebook to decide where to allocate it through the rest of the campaign. And you'll find the little toggle switch to turn this option on or off at the very top level of your entire campaign, the campaign level. Now, I leave this off, especially when I'm testing a new campaign, but I'll go over more of that in just a minute. The next gotcha that you need to be aware of happens at the ad set level, and you can find this one under placements. Now, the default here is advantage placements, and this is where you want to pay careful attention, because at least at the time of this recording, I really don't have a problem with advantage placements, which is essentially all placements. But I'd also strongly suggest at least being aware of this, because you will want to come back here at some point in the future, ideally after you've done your initial round of testing the more important things of your campaign, which we'll cover in just a minute. This is because sometimes by turning off the all placements option and manually selecting the options, you can get a much higher quality lead for a much less cost. For example, certain placements like the Facebook feed or Instagram Reels are phenomenal, especially when ads are designed and created specifically for those placements. Okay, this next gotcha though, this is the real killer. And it takes place at the ad level, and it's a sneaky little guy, so let's take care of that now. It's called Optimized Text Per Person. This is really not a very good name, so you can expect Meta to change this at some point in the near future. They do like to keep us on our toes. Now, if you don't see this option and the ability to turn it on or to turn it off, it could be due to the objective that you're using, and again, they're rolling this out at different campaigns and in different ad accounts. So just keep an eye on it. What it does though is essentially swap around the pieces of your ad, maybe taking the headline and moving it to the top, and taking your description text and putting that in your body copy, in your body, in your headline, and this and that and that one. And I don't like this for a couple reasons. First, things are just gonna look kind of funny if Facebook decides that your body copy would be better as a headline and your headline better as a body copy and your description there and body copy there, and we've been over this before. Sure, they do have a pretty advanced algorithm behind it, but I'd like to think that as a copywriter and as a marketer, I know what's gonna look better rather than having them kind of computationally, algorithmically Frankenstein my ad. Next, this is done by optimizing it on a person per person basis. So essentially what's shown to person A is going to be different than person B, which could be different than person C. Now over time, this level of personalization in order to maximize your ROI or return on investment is a phenomenal tool, but especially in the early days, I like to see what kind of ad is going to perform best for most people. This allows me to get a better insight and more data and more information on what kind of images and what kind of copy and what kind of hooks and taglines and that, so I can really drill down into creating what I call a super ad. And a super ad is really just fancy Adam talk for taking the best parts of all of my previous ads and putting them into one. Okay, next let's get tactical by setting up and launching a brand new campaign, complete with taking a look at the things that you want to test for, as well as the budget that you want to set at each level. Okay, first things first. As we already covered, a Facebook ad campaign is made up of 3 levels. The campaign, which is where you set your objective, and here the secret is that there really is no secret. Just tell Facebook what you want and don't try to trick the system. So if you want leads, click leads. Want sales? Click click sales. Next is the ad set level. This is where you select what audiences you want to target and placements. We'll come back to this in just a second. And then finally, you have the ads themselves, where you choose what images and text and headlines and videos and links and anything else involved with the front-facing ad itself. Now, when you're first starting with a brand new campaign, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but to keep things simple, we're going to focus on the big three. The first of which is the audience and targeting of your ad. It's been said that one of the most important ingredients in all of marketing is selling to a hungry crowd. In other words, my $5 hamburger is going to outsell your $50 steak every day of the week if my audience is starving and they'll eat anything, and your audience happens to be walking out of a fancy restaurant where they've just eaten more than they could ever eat, and the last thing they want to do is look at a steak. Basically, you want to focus on generating quality leads, which fortunately, as we talked about just a few minutes ago, is made up of a combination of how relevant they are to your business, how motivated they are to solve the problem or take action, and how capable they are of actually buying or paying for it. And well, the same thing applies here. This is why the first thing that I like to test in any Facebook ad campaign is 3 different audiences made up of characteristics and people that I think are going to perform best. Then, once I've got a winner and I have an absolute best performing audience, I'll move on to testing the next thing, which is the copy. When I test my copy, I typically test 3 different lengths, a short, a medium, and a long. Those are very original names. Now, each one is going to have a slightly different hook or angle, and obviously it's going to be constrained by the length of the ad, but essentially my goal is to figure out what length of content, what level of description or number of benefits or features I have to deliver in order to get someone to take action. One of the things that keeps me just so interested and passionate in marketing and advertising is how this is always changing. Back when we first started running ads like a decade or so ago, well, it was all about that short copy, just saying, here's this thing, you can come get it now. Then we evolved to medium length copy, and then to long copy, and then if you've been running ads for any length of time, you may remember a few years ago when we ran this crazy long copy that was basically 1,000, 2,000 word blog posts wedged into one ad. Then people stopped reading those, and we got a little shorter, and then a little shorter, and now we're kind of hovering around this middle ground that nobody seems to know what's going to work best. And that's where I like it, because it means that you've got some freedom and some flexibility to test different things out. Test the short, test the medium, test the long, and see what works best with your market, your offer, and your message. Anyway, once I've got my winning copy, I then move on to the next testing phase, which is the visuals. It's here in the testing of the visuals that I'll test different images and different videos and different GIFs. I might try carousels, I might try some obvious ones, some strange ones, some funny ones, anything to get someone to stop the scroll and actually click through to my message. Now, a common question that I get asked all the time is what works better with Facebook ads? Is it image or is it video? Let me tell you, a good video will beat a good image, but a good image will beat a bad video. So test both, but don't be afraid to start with the humble but mighty image ad. As for budget, when you set up a new campaign, use ad set budget, not advantage campaign budget. This is so that you can set a budget at the ad set level and control which ad set is getting which portion of your budget, rather than having Facebook just sort of allocate it to whatever it thinks is best, which may or may not be the best in the end. As a general rule, I set 5 times to 10 times the cost of desired lead per day per ad set. So as an example, if you're running an ad to a lead magnet or free downloadable guide and you're expecting to pay around $4 a lead, you would set your budget at $20 to $40 per day per ad set. On the other hand, if you're optimizing and aiming to make a sale right from the ad, then set 2 times to 3 times your max cost of desired sale per day. So an example here would be running an ad to a product that sells for $50 and your max cost of desired sale is, say, $30. Then you would set your ad set budget to $60 to $90 per day per ad set. To make all of your Facebook ads that much more effective though, you need to make sure that you're nailing your market message match. So to help you do that, I've linked up a video right here that's going to walk you through exactly how to do it step by step, as well as a few other of my absolute best Facebook advertising tips. So make sure to check it out now, and I'll see you in the next video. Nope, the reason that most ads don't work is because they're saying the wrong things to the wrong people. Or in other words, the offer that they're making